Hello everyone, welcome back to the course on Health Humanities, Indian and Western Medical Knowledge Traditions. This is lecture number 31 on aging. In this lecture, I will talk about how aging is not just a biological problem but also a social, cultural, political and historical concern, and what are the different narratives, different discourses about aging and how they shape one's understanding about old age people. So this is about the old age people and how old age has been formulated and what are the ways through which one can understand the problems of old age people. In this lecture, I will talk about aging in terms of biological, social, cultural and political factors. So aging is not just biological, but it is also a social, it is cultural, political. For example, when a person becomes old, how does he gets understood? How people look at him? What are the ways through which one frames a narrative about him? So the understanding of old age people depends upon a lot of other factors and they shape the narratives around old age people. Moreover, aging is not just a medical or biological condition, rather it incorporates the concerns of gender, race, class, ideology, material and physical possessions which one is having. For example, when we think about a man who is old and a woman who is old, they may experience their old age differently. In a society which is patriarchal, a man can be the holder of land, he can be the holder of property, and a woman may not hold any land, any property, and hence the material possessions will impact one's experiences of old age because they will get different kinds of treatments. Moreover, think about the old age when a person is like coming from upper class and rich class, and the person who is poor and coming from a lower class. They may not have means and mediums to access all kind of healthcare facilities once they are in problem. The people like who are coming from upper class or rich class, they may access medical facilities in their old age. So the experiences of a old age will vary depending upon the economic condition. It will vary depending upon their class conditions. Also, there are like certain views, certain ideologies, points of view that also impacts the aging process. And when we think about like aging is not just biological, it is social. One can think about social physicality, where old age or aging intertwines with biological and non-biological material existence. And one has to like then understand what health humanities says that one has to accept and then interpret or maybe understand the idea of discourse, history and individual narratives in understanding old age. So old age is not just biological, medical or personal conditions, rather it is a web of uh, what you call different intersections, web of different patterns that formulate the understanding of old age. When we think about the concept of aging in different traditions, different cultures, then we find that from like Greco-Roman to Indian religious systems, we have different cultural interpretations of aging. So the idea of aging or old age has been seen in classical Greco-Roman culture in different way, modern European culture in different way, and it has different understanding in the Indian context. When we think about the first discourse about old age, which goes around 3000 to 2500 BC. The discourse is called the Papyrus Smith in Egypt. It provides manuals for changing the old man to youth. It has a chapter, a part, which is called Recipe for Transforming an Old Man into a Youth. So what we find in this narrative, that old man has no space. Rather, the space is for the young people, and people can transform their old age, and then they can be back to youth. So in a way, we find that old age is something which is rejected, unfavored, and youth is something acceptable and accepted. This narrative, the Papyrus Smith, it talks about the instances of how to remove wrinkles from one's face. It talks about beautifying skin and treating weakness caused by aging, the process of aging. So what we find, long back, that is 3000 to 2500 BC, that old age has no space, old man has no space. Rather, people have to think about how to remove wrinkles, how to beautify skin, or how to become young. Further, when we think about Greek traditions and remember about Hippocratic theory, where he says that older man's body is cold and needs a little fuel, which means the people who are young, their body is what you call hot, which means they are having power, they have strength. Old man's body is become cold, and then they need a little amount of food for their survival. When we think about another classical medical theorist, Galen, he says that old age is a dry and cold constitution of the body, resulting from many years of life. So, old age is a dry and cold constitution. I mean, see that they have a negative kind of metaphors, dry and cold constitution. Hippocrates also talks about the cold body, which means something which is not acceptable in society. So medically, in the ancient Greek and Roman culture, old age has been something denounced. It is not accepted. It says like people have lived for a long time, and then it has to change, or it needs a little fuel for surviving. When we think about almost 1,000-year-old text by Roger Bacon called On Retardation of Old Age, and he says that old age or aging is the first cause of death, which means he compares aging with death. Let us think about some of the Indian narratives, Indian texts about aging. And one of the earliest examples is Sushruta Samhita, which also talks about how to stay young. It talks about the anti-aging process. When we think about Indian philosophy, it talks about prolonging life to prepare the soul for nirvana, which means to free from the cycle of birth and death. So body is not important in the Indian philosophy. It is soul which matters. Let us think about Bhagavad Gita. What does it say about the old age, old people, or old body? It says that the way human beings change their clothes, once the cloth becomes old and torn out, similarly soul changes the body when it becomes unfit for the soul. And so the comparison or the metaphor of changing cloth with a changing body. So body has been put a secondary, our body has been given a secondary importance. Soul is primary. And the line in English which I am putting over here from Bhagavad Gita, just as human beings shed their old and worn out clothes and don new attire. The Atma, also referred to as Dehi or soul, sits an old and worn out body to don a new body. So body is something secondary. Soul is primary. Soul is something which is permanent, and so body is only a means. So Indian philosophy, Indian culture has not given much importance to the soul. Sorry, much importance to the body. They have given importance to the soul. Moreover, if they like aging body, then they think about how to revive them, how to actually make people young. So in this way, when we think at aging from the perspective of health humanities, then we have to consider that aging or old age is not just a physical condition. Rather, one has to consider old age through a structure, and this can be like income, healthcare facilities, shelter. When a person becomes old, does he have does he get enough financial support? Is he having any means of income to survive? Does he get healthcare facilities? Does he have a shelter? So there are like a lot of questions which have been put to understand the old age from a structural perspective. So income is equally important. Without money, one cannot survive. Without food, one cannot survive. One needs medical care, health care facilities. One needs a shelter to live in. One needs a family to support. One needs the people around who can support. And technology can be a means which can provide welfare or which can help the old age people, but it can also cause alienation. Further, the problem of old age in different countries are arising because of the disintegration of family. Now, the family are becoming individual or single family, and because of industrialization, urbanization, the families are disintegrating, and the people who are old, they are left to survive alone, or they are left in the old age houses. So they need emotional support, they need personal support, personal care, which is lacking in the modern urban world, which is lacking in the industrialized, urbanized world. And also, when we have all the members who are busy in earning money, then they have no time for taking care of their old parents. So one has to understand the problem of old age through a set of structures. It can be family, it can be income, it can be health care, it can be shelter, it can be personal care, and so many other things. Uh, the purpose of this lecture is not to deny aging, because body will age after a point of time. Rather, we have to think about ageism. So we have to think about the parameters, the notions, the ideologies, the cultural and social discourses that discriminate the old people. Further, we have to think about the role of state, NGOs, local agencies, medical care facilities, life insurance systems, employment system, and many other things, like how they help the old age people or how they discriminate against old age people. Sometimes like state is providing certain kind of old age pensions which can help them when they are in need. State is providing some kind of sheltering houses where they can survive. There are a lot of NGOs, non-government organizations. They also provide food, medical facilities, as well as in personal care. There are so many other local agencies which provide help to the old age people. Then there are like medical care facilities. Now, like there are like some life insurances that people, when they become a particular, when they achieve in a particular age, and then they will achieve a certain amount of money. So when they are young, they can save some money, and those money will keep growing, and which they can utilize once they need in their old age. So we have different means through which one can actually accumulate their wealth, and there are like systems like old age pension systems. So, but these are also providing some problems. How? Because of old age houses, NGOs, people are not taking care of their parents, old parents, and then they are left to survive, or they are left to live alone. And let us think about the meaning and purpose in the old age. What does old age people want? They need a purpose in their life. They need like a moral worth, a moral justification of their existence. They also need to find themselves like that they are important, they are significant, and also like control over the over the outer environment, that things are there for their support. So the people in old age need four things: purpose, moral worth, self-worth, and control. Moreover, the people who are getting old, they seek meaning of their life, meaning of their existence. They need their existence to be recognized. And in this way, ageism or old age is a socio-cultural construction. It is not just a biological construction. Here we find that state policy, media, culture, they stereotype, or they provide certain notions, certain formulations about the people who are old. So understanding old age people needs a lot of social and cultural perspectives, which is different from other medical and individual perspectives. So we do not need to see the old age simply in terms of the decline of body, but also how different narratives are made and how they shape certain points of view, how they create or how they propagate and validate certain narratives over others. And as I said earlier, when we need to understand old age people, then we need to think about the issues of gender, class, and cultural variations. Old age people, particularly old age women, they are more marginalized because they have less economic and social stability. Economically, they do not own anything in most of the countries because the society is largely patriarchal. They are marginalized in the society. They are dependent upon the male members for any kind of medical care or any kind of things which they need. Further, the experiences of old age are also dependent upon caste, class, geography, and education. The people like who are living in the rural area, they may have less access to the things which they need, including their clothes and food. And those who are in the urban area, they may have more chances of getting things. It also depends upon their education. It also depends upon the caste. Suppose like a person who belongs to the old age and belongs to in a socially what you call deprived strata of, deprived strata, and then other people like who are from what you call Dalit and tribal communities, and then they have less access to the facilities because of the division of society in a particular way. Moreover, in a patriarchal world, the majority of women do not have any share in the property, and hence their future remains insecure. What if her husband dies and her children do not take care of her, or her children provide her nothing from the property of her husband, and then they are seen as a burden? One has also like considered old age from the perspective of gender, economic, and socio-cultural nexus. which negate the position of old woman. Let us think about the case of an old woman who is poor, uneducated, marginalized in the society, in the social strata. Then she will find herself to be less significant in the public system, and she will face more exploitation. So we find that the people, the women who face more problems in the old age compared to the male people. And in this way, one has to think about different cultural narratives which shapes one's understanding, one's point of view of the people who are old. So there are like different stories, different narratives that shape the person's perception of aging. And these narratives or cultural narratives are formulated through different stories, different imaginaries, creative writings, arts, paintings, pictures, and all different representations, beliefs, archetypes, ideologies, metaphors, symbols, stock images prevailing in the culture are in a group. So we find that like there are certain images for the old age people, certain metaphors about the old age people. When we read uh, like some books, and then they say like either they associate old age with experience, or they associate old age with what you call that they do not have any kind of things to do. There are certain archetypes about the old age people that they keep on saying certain things and do nothing, and they say the meaningless things. And these narratives, these stories, they become part of one's life. Further, there are different other mediums which actually create one's opinion about the old age. This can be through books, newspapers, advertisements, apps, TV shows, entertainment platforms like OTT, and web series, films. How these like different narratives formulate opinions about the people who are old. And we find in most of the books that the people who are old, they are seen as sometimes useless people, and the case may be otherwise in some books as well. Then there are a lot of what you call state apparatuses like school, legal systems, and the state rule, how they consider old age people. For example, like in the Indian context, depending upon different states, the age of retirement from service is, let us say, 58 years, 60 years, 62 years, or 50 years, or maybe 55 years, or maybe 65 years. So in a way, the state government finds that their time for service gets over. What about legal judgments? The state rules. So there are like different state apparatuses which have less involvement of the people who become old. And then there are some social institutions like congregations, marriages, religious practices, how they get recognized, how they get accepted, and what are their roles. So we find that we have the like state apparatuses, school apparatuses, ideological apparatuses, and so many other narratives formulate particular kind of opinions about old age, and then they legitimate certain views over others. And so these narratives, they allow certain values, certain practices, certain attitudes, expectations about the people who are old. They position them differently. So old age is not just a biological or a medical case. Rather, one has to understand old age through the narratives of culture. One can also think about old age through power, what Michel Foucault says, the power knowledge relations. And so these narratives act in a particular way. Then there are two different popular narratives about old age. One is age decline narratives, and other one is age defying narratives. The age decline narratives talk about old age as in terms of frailty, uselessness, and dependency. So the people like who are becoming old, they are frail, they are weak, they are useless, they are dependent. They can be dependent upon the family members, upon the state, upon the institutions, and they the age decline narrative also talks about the loss of not just a physical but a mental capacity of the people who are old. So age decline narrative talks about the loss of physical and mental capacities. It also talks about their social disengagement and withdrawal of old age people from different spheres of life. So they are like different narratives which suggest that the people who are becoming old, then they are becoming useless, dependent, weak, and then they disengage from, withdraw from different activities. And then there are like also the views that the people who are old, they seek medical helps, they get stereotyped in terms of declination. They are seen as like fearsome for themselves and for society. They become genderless and sexless and identityless. They simply become old people. How they become genderless or sexless? Because they have lost their energy. They do not have any kind of physical power. They have been seen as a burden on economy, society, and national progress. There are like multiple narratives which says that the country is like any country which is young at a point of time, then that country will be also having another point of time the largest old population, and the state has to manage them. People give examples of China, people give examples of Japan, and maybe after 30-35 years of years, India will be also having one of the largest old age population, because now India is having the youngest population, which is of 35 years old. So once this population gets old, maybe after 30 or 35 years, so they will be seen like a burden on the economy. And government then actually makes a lot of revisions because they have been seen as a hindrance to the national progress. In the Indian context, for example, the pension system has been transformed into new pension schemes or unified pension schemes because it has been seen as a burden on the national progress. It is costing on the economy of India. So old age has been seen as a problem in terms of the policies of the state. However, there is also age-defying narratives, and the age-defying narrative says that the people who are old, they are the source of wisdom, leisure, spirituality. The people like who are old, they have a lot of spiritual knowledge. They have a lot of wisdom. In one of his poems by Robert Browning, the poem is called Rabbi Ben Ezra, and Browning says, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be," where old age has been seen as a means of wisdom. And it is also associated with experience, spirituality, leisure, and education. Further, uh, people consider old age as they can think about healthy aging in terms of cultural engagements. That the people like who are becoming old, they can participate in cultural activities, and through medical help they can survive a life of without the disease. And so their old age will be the age of fulfillment. When we think about old age in the Indian context, in the conventional, maybe traditional Indian family, then they have been also part of the family where they take care of their uh, granddaughters, grandsons, or like younger sons and children. So old age has been also seen in the Indian context, not just as a, like a system, as a source of support, but also a source of advice, and also they also provide a sense of security in the house, in the family. When we think about Plato and Socrates, they consider that the people who are old, they have accumulation of knowledge and experience, and then they can guide the society, they can guide the young people. So there are like another narrative which calls age defying narratives, and then they bring out the brighter side, the positive side of the people who are old. There are how to understand old age, and a discipline is developing which is called narrative gerontology. And narrative gerontology talks about life stories which can create meaning and which can and counter stereotypes. When we think about Arthur Frank in his book The Wounded Storyteller, he talks about three types of narratives: restitution, chaos, and quest narrative. And one can think usually about the old age in terms of chaos, but it can also, like, one can sublimate their old age experiences and formulate into the form of a quest narrative. So to conclude, the understanding of old age around the world has social, cultural, religious, as well as biological uh, factors, and it is the domain of health humanities which tries to construct a non-normative and inclusive narrative about the old age people, where it talks about how to include the people who belong to the old age. Moreover, it talks about different factors which which talks about the decline of the old age people, and then it also talks about other narratives which can help them uh, to make their life meaningful. And in this way, one can think about aging as a developmental and meaning making journey. And the purpose of this lecture is to critique all those narratives which talks about the decline of people in the old age, or the isolation and exclusion of people in the old age. The purpose of this lecture is to make people sensitive, to make people aware about the needs of old people, and suggest means to take care of them, or how to make them the part of the society, how to make them the part of our existence. So with this, I end this lecture. Thank you. And moreover, I have a list of suggested readings which one can think about, and or which one can read further. And with this, I end. Thank you.